My stepmother pointed at me in front of 200 wealthy guests and screamed. "She's not supposed to be here." 10 seconds later, security guards grabbed my arm at my own father's charity gala while people filmed me with their phones. And my father? He stood there silently while I was escorted out like a criminal. But at 3:17 a.m. that same night, I woke up to 68 missed calls. And suddenly the same family who humiliated me publicly was begging me to answer. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 30 years old, and if you looked at my family from the outside, you'd think we were perfect. My father, Richard Bennett, owned one of the biggest real estate development firms in Chicago. Old money. Magazine covers. Private galas. Political connections. The kind of family that looked polished in photographs and rotten underneath. My mother died when I was 11. 3 years later, my father married Vanessa. And from the moment she entered our lives, she treated me less like a daughter and more like an inconvenience left behind by another woman. Vanessa was beautiful in a terrifying way. Always composed. Always smiling. The kind of person who could insult you gently enough that everyone else thought you were overreacting. At first, my father defended me sometimes. But over the years, something changed. Maybe grief exhausted him. Maybe wealth made comfort more important than truth. Either way, eventually he stopped fighting her. And once he stopped fighting, I stopped mattering. By 21, I'd moved out completely. No financial support. No trust fund access. Nothing. Vanessa made sure of that. According to her, I was too unstable to manage family assets responsibly. The truth? I refused to kiss the ring. So while my stepbrother Tyler got handed luxury condos and executive titles despite failing upward his entire life, I built my own career quietly. I became an investigative journalist. Ironically, the same family that dismissed me publicly hated how good I became privately. Especially Vanessa. Because journalists notice patterns. And wealthy people survive on controlling narratives. For years, I kept my distance from family events. Birthdays. Holidays. Vacations. I skipped almost all of them. Peacefully. Then came the gala invitation. A formal black envelope delivered to my apartment. The Bennett Foundation Annual Charity Gala. Hosted by Richard and Vanessa Bennett. At first, I assumed it was sent accidentally. Then I noticed the handwritten note from my father inside. Would mean a lot if you came. That one sentence destroyed me emotionally more than I expected. Because my father almost never reached out directly anymore. And stupidly, part of me still wanted him to choose me. So I went. That was my mistake. The gala took place at the Langford Hotel downtown. Massive chandeliers. String quartet. Politicians and CEOs pretending to care about charity while networking over champagne. I arrived alone wearing a simple black dress and immediately felt the room shift slightly. People recognized me. Not as Richard Bennett's daughter. As the journalist. I'd recently helped expose corruption connected to a major housing development scandal. Apparently my reputation had grown larger than my family realized. At first, things remained civil. Awkward. But civil. Dad hugged me stiffly. "You look good," he said quietly. Vanessa smiled beside him. Cold. Controlled. Claire. What a surprise. Surprise? I held up the invitation calmly. Dad invited me. Her smile twitched for half a second. That tiny crack told me everything. She didn't know. The night moved on uncomfortably. People kept approaching me privately asking about my reporting work. One senator even complimented an article I wrote. And every single conversation visibly irritated Vanessa more. Because attention was oxygen to her. Then came twist number 1. About an hour into the gala, I overheard 2 board members whispering near the bar. Apparently the Bennett Foundation was under quiet financial review after inconsistencies appeared in overseas donations. My stomach tightened immediately. Because I knew something they didn't. 3 months earlier, an anonymous source sent me documents connected to suspicious nonprofit transfers tied indirectly to real estate shell companies. I never connected them fully to my father's organization. Until that moment. And suddenly pieces started locking together in my head. Then Vanessa approached me smiling tightly. "Enjoying yourself?" I nodded slowly. "Learning a lot actually." That sentence hit her instantly. You could see it. A flicker of panic behind her eyes. Then she asked casually. "Still writing those little investigation stories?" "Little. Always little." I smiled politely. "Some stories turn out bigger than expected." Silence. Heavy silence. Then she walked away immediately. 20 minutes later. Everything exploded. I was standing near the silent auction tables when 2 security guards approached me. "Miss Bennett?" "Yes?" "We need you to leave the premises." At first, I genuinely thought there was confusion. "What?" One guard looked uncomfortable. "We received reports you're harassing guests and attempting unauthorized access to restricted areas." I stared at him in disbelief. Then I saw Vanessa watching from across the ballroom. Calm. Satisfied. And suddenly I understood. She wanted me removed before I noticed anything else. Before I asked questions. Before I became dangerous. "Are you serious right now?" I whispered. People started staring immediately. Phones appeared. Whispers spread. Humiliation flooded through my body so hard I felt physically sick. Then came the worst part. I looked directly at my father. Waiting. Begging silently for him to stop this. He hesitated. Just for a second. Then lowered his eyes. That hurt more than security touching my arm. More than the whispers. Because in that moment, he chose comfort over me again. Vanessa suddenly raised her voice dramatically. "She's emotionally unstable. Please just escort her out quietly." Emotionally unstable. That phrase hit like acid. Because it wasn't random. Years earlier, after my mother died, I struggled with panic attacks during grief counseling. Vanessa weaponized that history constantly whenever she needed to discredit me. And now she was doing it publicly. Guests stared at me with pity and suspicion while security walked me through the ballroom. I heard someone whisper. "That's Richard's daughter?" I wanted the floor to swallow me alive. Outside, cold air hit my face hard. One guard quietly muttered. "For what it's worth, this feels wrong." I laughed bitterly. Yeah. It usually does. I went home humiliated. Shaking. Half angry. Half heartbroken. And honestly? That should have been the end of the story. But at 3:17 a.m., my phone exploded. 68 missed calls. Texts. Voicemails. From my father. Tyler. Board members. Unknown numbers. Even Vanessa. My first thought was somebody died. Then I checked the news alerts. And twist number 2 hit like a train. A financial whistleblower leaked internal foundation records online during the gala itself. Millions of dollars connected to fraudulent charitable routing. Luxury property kickbacks. Fake overseas aid distributions. And attached to several filings. Vanessa's digital authorization signatures. The scandal detonated overnight. News stations ran emergency coverage. Social media exploded. Federal investigators got involved within hours. And suddenly the timing of my removal from the gala looked very different publicly. Not emotional instability. Damage control. Then came the biggest twist of all. One voicemail from my father changed everything. "Claire, please call me back. Vanessa used your name. I froze. Listened again. Apparently several internal communications falsely implied I consulted on media strategy for parts of the foundation. Meaning if investigators traced public narratives, my name could appear connected. I felt physically ill. Not because I feared guilt. Because even now, even after humiliating me publicly, they still dragged me toward the fire to protect themselves. Then I opened the final voicemail. Vanessa crying hysterically. Not elegant. Not controlled. Broken. Claire, please. You know how media works. You can help fix this. Fix this. Interesting choice of words from the woman who had security throw me out hours earlier. Then came the climax. By noon the next day, reporters surrounded the Bennett estate. Videos of my removal from the Gala spread everywhere online. And unfortunately for Vanessa, multiple guests recorded the entire incident, including her calling me emotionally unstable. Public sympathy shifted instantly. Not toward the billionaire family. Toward me. The disgraced daughter publicly humiliated hours before the corruption scandal broke. And then investigators discovered something devastating. Vanessa intentionally redirected certain foundation funds through shell nonprofits connected to Tyler's failed business ventures. My father apparently knew pieces of it, but not the scale. The board removed both Vanessa and Tyler immediately. Corporate partners vanished overnight. And suddenly the same people who watched me get escorted out silently wanted interviews about how I survived such a toxic family. My father finally came to my apartment 3 days later. No luxury car. No assistants. Just him. Looking older than I'd ever seen. He stood at my door quietly and whispered, "I should have stopped them from throwing you out." Them. Not her. Them. Still protecting himself with shared blame. I looked at him for a long time before asking, "Would you have called me if the scandal never happened?" Silence. That silence answered everything. Then he started crying. Actual crying. I didn't know how bad she'd become. I almost laughed. Because people like my father always say that. As if evil arrives suddenly instead of through years of tolerated behavior. I didn't scream at him. Didn't slam the door dramatically. Honestly? What I felt was sadder than anger. Nothing. Just emptiness where hope used to live. So I told him the truth calmly. You didn't lose me at the gala. You lost me slowly every time you watched someone hurt me and decided silence was easier. He couldn't even look at me after that. Today, federal investigations are still ongoing. Vanessa disappeared from public life completely. Tyler's business collapsed. My father resigned from the foundation. And me? I kept reporting. Kept writing. Kept building a life away from people who only valued loyalty when it protected their image. Sometimes I still think about standing in that ballroom while security escorted me past hundreds of staring strangers. The humiliation. The betrayal. The way my father looked away. But honestly, those 68 missed calls taught me something important. The people who silence you publicly always panic when the truth starts speaking louder than they do.